Hello everyone and welcome back to some really aggressive natural lighting where today I'm going over some questions, some Edge of Fate questions. On June 3rd, which was yesterday, I unleashed 4 videos going over a bunch of information for the Edge of Fate as a little like preview thing because I went to a preview event, and many other creators also dropped tons and tons and tons of videos. But there were a lot of questions that I got during the stream of, things that maybe I didn't talk about in the videos, or things that I maybe didn't cover very extensively that kept coming up. So I have about 9 things here, maybe 10, that I just want to go over and just kind of yap to you about, because I can't really use too much footage from my time there because the video wouldn't be approved by Bungie because they only let me use certain footage. So I'm just going to be like sitting here yapping at your face. So if you just want to like listen to this video, that's totally fine. So the first thing that I want to address is probably the most common question, and that was the fact that there are certain prismatic aspects that are no longer having the same amount of fragment slots in Edge of Fate. Sorry, I don't have a script in front of me. I'm just kind of freeballing this one. So most notably, Consecration, Knockout, Stylist Executioner, and Feed the Void, I think are all going down to 1 fragment slot. You might have heard me mention in one of the videos that I did that in one of the builds that I was doing on my Prismatic Warlock, I only had 3 fragment slots. And I was like, oh, is that a bug? Is that real? I don't know. But I never actually like followed up on that information. And yeah, some of these higher powered prismatic aspects are getting their fragments or fragment slots rather massively reduced in order to try to, I guess, compensate for how strong some of these effects are on prismatic. So, conceptually, philosophically, I get the concept of like, hey, we think there are some things in prismatic that are still running a bit hot, and we want to try to do something about them. I got no issue with that. Prismatic Titan, Consecration Titan is crazy. Prismatic Warlock, crazy. Everything about prismatic is crazy. So on that level, I'm like, okay, I get it. Do what you got to do, right? But I think it's the way that they're potentially going about it is the more confusing thing. I very intentionally didn't talk a lot of I didn't talk shop a lot during my videos because we didn't get like a huge list of patch notes that was like, oh, this is getting nerfed and this is getting buffed. So I didn't have a lot of that information on me. So I was kind of waiting for Bungie to come out with some sort of an article and then we would talk about it more. But I just got this question so much that I wanted to talk about it a little bit more. I think like right now there's like a lot of sticker shock of like, what are they? We're going from 5 fragments on like a Consecration Titan down to 2. Now, granted, I still think Prismatic is still so insane that 2 fragments on a Prismatic Titan will still be probably totally fine. You're probably just going to use like Protection and Dawn. So, you're still getting the damage resistance and you're still getting some free Radiant, although I do think you could cycle out the Radiant for something else. So it's just coming across as like, whoa, that is a lot of our build crafting potential also kind of gone, and just like a lot of power loss all in one go. Is there some other way you could have gone about this? And I think another thing as well is the fact that like I keep saying with Prismatic Titan because I think they're an easy example, although Warlock is also kind of an easy example, in that Prismatic Titan does have like a lot of builds, like a lot of good builds. So people are like, hey, instead of like nerfing something like, Consecration and Knockout and stuff like that, why don't you bring some of the other stuff up? Because no one really wants to play with Unbreakable. No one really wants to play with Drinker's Lash. And the only other thing in there that's in the middle is Diamond Lance. So if you rotate off of the Consecration setup, the only other like good setup, quote unquote, is like a Diamond Lance setup. And then if it turns out the nerfs are like too brutal, which I don't think they will be, but if they are too brutal, then it's like, okay, well now we just have this like 1 Diamond Lance setup with like a slight spin-off of another Diamond Lance setup. So I think some of that is a bit of a concern, is just the fact that, yeah, you're doing some nerfs and like I get it, but it's the process of how that is happening. Warlock, Feed the Void. I mean, Devour is just so good to have literally everywhere. So I can, I understand. Feed the Void. We want to nerf Devour a little bit. You got to nerf that effect. Okay. I understand. Stylus Executioner. It's very good. There's a lot of melee-based combos on Prismatic Hunter. But yeah, I want to see some more patch notes. And I want to see a few other things before we get into a more in-depth conversation. And Bungie has already acknowledged some of this feedback and concern. I think they've only said something like, hey, we're taking note of all your feedback and we're taking a look at it. So they have acknowledged that people are kind of freaking out about this. So it was a little bit of a concern, but I'm also still of the mind that prismatic everything is so good that I'm like, dude, I don't even know if what you're doing to prismatic and removing a bunch of fragments is even going to put that much of a dent in how powerful these setups are. So I do want to monitor the situation a little more closely and see what's going on. But, at the same time, there are some things that I think Bungie could do to some other prismatic aspects to, try to bolster them a little bit more to make them more appealing to want to take. But I understand, only Dranger's Lash is a very defensive Titan focused thing where Suspend also just kind of got nerfed a bunch. So it's how do you make that more exciting? How do you make Unbreakable more exciting as a thing, as a utility thing, compared to Consecration, where you combine it with 3 Frenzy Blade charges and you're just consecrating everything in sight, right? That's kind of the issue. So yeah, I do want to monitor that. And I wouldn't mind also doing a follow-up of how bad are these nerfs really, by going on to all of the classes and all of their, what I call main setups on Prismatic, and only using 2 or 3 fragments, whatever you're going to have access to in Edge of Fate, in case the changes stay the same, and be okay, how bad is this really? I just don't have the time to do it literally at this moment, but it's something that I do want to work on over the next maybe couple of days. That was kind of long-winded. I'm not going to lie to you. Next up is the stat and the power and the number crunches explained a little bit better. 2 things kept coming up. Number 1 was mobility, in that hey, how does that work now? Is everyone the same speed? I had multiple people asking me about hey, did you test strafe speed in your Edge of Fate preview event? No, I did not test strafe speed at the event. You might want to hit up one of the PvP boys about that one. PvP girls, PvP people. Whoever did some PvP coverage. I don't know who did what coverage, but I know there is a leg mod that has some sort of mobility-based thing to kind of add a bunch of that extra mobility utility back in if you want it in your boots. But that is all I really know about the mobility stuff. I got a lot of resilience questions as well. Oh no, they're removing our 30% damage reduction from our characters, and they're replacing it with nothing. Did you feel a big difference in your combat sequences when playing the game? And the answer is no, because I'm guessing that Bungie has kind of retuned damage values and retuned enemy damage and all that kind of stuff based on the fact that no one has resilience anymore. It's very possible that they just baked it into every character, or they just completely sucked it out of the game and compensated all the damage on enemies accordingly, so that you wouldn't just be getting instantly annihilated by some enemies without that 100 resilience. So I wouldn't be too concerned about resilience going away and oh, but what about my damage reduction? That is all being balanced out to kind of be a non-factor, because when everyone builds into resilience, it's why even have the stat anymore when it's that good? They just kind of bake it into the whole game, and then you can free up your slots for doing something else, which I thought was a good move. Otherwise, I saw a lot of people being concerned with number crunches and oh my God, the numbers are so low now. And that doesn't make me feel good, because we used to be capable of hitting some hundreds of thousands of damage and the 999,999 and, max damage values and all this kind of stuff. And now we're going down to oh, wow, I'm hitting for 3,000 whoop-de-doo. And I think that is going to take a little bit of time to get used to, right? Eventually we'll hit some sort of an equilibrium where we understand more of the appropriate damage values, and we'll find that new big number. Like you hit with 10,000 damage for something, that might be like the new big number to strive for, and you hit a 10,000, you're like, oh my god, 10,000, 20,000, whatever the number might be, right? Everything will be rebalanced and recontextualized into finding what is the big number, what is not the big number. And it's not something that I'm really that concerned about. I think it also makes the game a bit more readable in that, you know, the numbers are smaller and just kind of easier to comprehend. Now, that being said, I could understand situations where, you know, people see such a small damage increase in something that you're not even sure if it's working properly, even if percentage-wise it is working properly, right? Like when you go from 300,000 damage getting a 10% boost, it's very easy to notice to go from 300,000 to 330,000, right? That's a big jump, or like any other these bigger jumps. It's crazy to see from like 300,000 to 400,000. It's very noticeable. Whereas if you're going from like, I did some hammer tests with a perk, with a melee perk that went up 5%, 10%, 15%. And I would throw the hammer, did like 336 damage or whatever, and the next hammer was like 351. And you look at that and it's like, dude, that barely did anything. But percentage-wise, it did what it said it was going to do. So the readability of the smaller numbers might feel a little bit awkward as well, because the numbers are so much smaller and so much more compacted that it might be tough to tell at times, like, is this actually even doing anything, when it is? Like, percentage-wise, everything is staying the same. It's just the numbers are getting mega smushed down, and that might be a little awkward to like first get used to, but we will get used to it. Next up was some stuff about like, oh my god, my weapons, my armor, it's gonna be all obsolete. Oh, my weapons. That's you. So I want to talk a little bit more about, like, you know, the tier 5 chase versus kind of stuff we have right now. Again, so the kind of stuff we have now, I talked about this a little bit in the video, but I'll talk about it a little bit more. The stuff that we have right now, if you're at like the peak, if you're at the pinnacle of like stuff that you can have, I'm talking fully enhanced crafted. I'm talking giga artifice armor. You're rocking 66s, 67s, 68s, maybe some 69s in there, right? You got like cream of the crop stuff. And when we enter Edge of Fate, your weapons, that's going to be around like a tier 3. And your armor will be around like in between, I would call it like a tier 3.5, somewhere in that range. Now, again, we went over, you know, the conversion of your current armor to the armor 3.0. The amount of stats on your armor is staying completely the same. And we actually did a little, I'm going to cut to a clip like right now of like how you might be seeing some of your stats convert. I don't know if this is final. I don't know if this is like random, but spoilers, I'm guessing that Bungie is changing strength to the melee stat, and they're changing discipline to the grenade stat, and they're changing intellect to the super stat, and they're changing a couple other things. I'll show the clip. So yeah, strength into melee, recovery into class, mobility probably into weapons, intellect probably into super, resilience into health, discipline into grenade. So all that's changing, but your stat values are staying the same. Now, you might not have the armor rolls that you're looking for, but your armor is still going to be absolutely usable for a time, right? Eventually, you will want to move on. You will want to upgrade, or maybe the game will even force you into like a new path, right? But the gear is still usable for the start. It's going to be better than probably the majority of things that you're going to be finding dropping during the Edge of Fate campaign. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people used almost no new gear whatsoever until they hit 200. And then maybe from there, that's when you start to pull in some other pieces, because like Bushido armor set bonus, 2-piece set bonus is basically heal clip built into your armor. That's pretty freaking good, right? When it comes to your weapons, I mean, I don't know how many times we've had this conversation before, but you will not need tier 5 weapons in order to play the game to the fullest. You got to think back to like when Bungie first came up with like the concept of adept weapons, right? What were they trying to do? They were trying to prevent a situation that they had already made happen earlier with Recluse and Not Forgotten, and to a lesser degree Mountaintop, where they created these weapons for achieving such a high goal in the game that they trounced everything else in the game. So they didn't want to have these like upper tier difficulty items just absolutely trashing on people and trashing on other things in the game. So adepts are just like slightly better. Enhanced perks, they're just like slightly better, right? There's some fringe cases where like, oh dude, enhanced kinetic tremors on bows is actually crazy now because like versus the regular version, right? There's some fringe cases there, but like most of the time you can expect maybe what, 5 to at most 10% efficacy bonus on an enhanced perk versus a non-enhanced perk, right? So the difference there is not that insane, right? A lot of people probably cannot tell the difference between having an enhanced barrel or an enhanced magazine and having a not enhanced barrel or enhanced magazine, right? It's very difficult for the average person to feel some of these slight stat adjustments like 5 range or 7 stability or 4 handling in a random PvE moment during gameplay. PvP, I understand, it's a little more fine-tuned. People find these certain hotspots and areas on the map where they can tell like, oh, if I'm a little bit closer, if I had a little more range, it does maximum damage, blah, blah. I understand that, right? But for PvE, it's much more difficult to tell some of these stat differences. And you could honestly like never engage with any sort of adept weapons, enhanced perks, and you will be able to do everything in the game. Everything. They do not matter that much, but that does create a problem of like, okay, well, if the tier 5s don't actually matter that much, then what's like the point of grinding for them? It's about finding like what matters to actually, what actually matters to you, right? Some people are going to really want those tier 5 weapons as a showcase of like, hey, I did the hardest things and I grinded and I achieved the pinnacle and good for me. And some people are going to be happy with like tier 3, tier 4, like, yeah, this is good enough. You know, I don't need to like push myself to the absolute limit just to get like 4 extra range on a barrel, right? I wouldn't panic about your entire arsenal being completely made obsolete, right? If anything, because Bungie is not going to be able to, you know, create a whole bunch of weapons to completely refill the dozens and hundreds of weapons that we've gotten before this moment. Like, if you don't think your aberrant action from episode 1 is still going to be one of the best weapons in the game, or your Tanasha's Mastery is not going to be one of the best weapons in the game, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Those weapons are still going to be really good, enhanced or not. So I don't want people to come in to Edge of Fate thinking like, you just need to purge everything because it's all garbage. There's gonna be so many weapons from the previous era that still get used because they're just like one of a kind, or they're just that good, or they haven't had a replacement or anything like that. It's gonna take a lot, I think, for Bungie to end up power creeping some of the stuff that we have, just because some of it's really good, and I've seen some of the new perks, and I've talked about some of the new perks, and I didn't see too many game changers in there just yet. So don't panic about all of your stuff being made obsolete. Armor, sure, you might cycle through that a little bit faster, but like, dude, again, Bushido armor, like 2-piece, is good, and there's other bonuses that we don't even know about yet. And then weapon wise, I had someone come in and ask like, hey, is my breakneck with subsistence onslaught double enhanced still gonna be good in the expansion? Yeah, it's gonna be really good. That's a good weapon. You should hold on to that one. It's good. It will continue to be good. All right? Hold on to your stuff. Don't panic. It's going to be fine. Okay? It's going to be fine. Next up, I didn't talk about Kepler at all. I didn't talk about the campaign at all. And that's because, you know, one thing was like, I don't really want to do a whole bunch of spoilers. I don't want to show people story stuff that they don't want to be seeing. I want to experience that stuff on stream with my community live in the moment and react accordingly to that stuff in the moment. But there was some stuff that I did play with that I could give some commentary on. So I'm not going to really talk about any story stuff because outside of the first mission, I don't know anything because I had the dialogue turned off and the subtitles turned off. I literally have no idea what's happening other than we go to a place because they like hit our phone up and they're like, hey, it's the 9. If you could like pick up and come over here, that'd be sick. So Let's talk about Kepler a little bit. One of the core things about Kepler is the fact that they're trying to make it like this Metroidvania type experience where you're getting new skills or like new intrinsic abilities that work only on Kepler that are like, oh, you get a special gun and you can turn into a ball and you can do this and you can create platforms and like whatever else we're going to be doing over there. And you use that to solve some puzzles. Now, during my time playing some of the missions, I never really found myself struggling too much to solve a puzzle. They were pretty self-explanatory a lot of the time to me. And most of the time, my frustration from puzzle solving wasn't that like, oh, I need to figure out the timing or the correct order to do like, I got to shoot the cannon so that I can turn it into a ball so I can flip over here. It was more like, I can't find the damn hole in the wall where I gotta be a ball to go up some kind of a ramp to trigger this thing. Like I knew what to do in a lot of spots, but the problem ended up being like, I'm just roaming around looking for this tiny little entrance that I cannot find, and it's pissing me off, man. So for me, the biggest thing puzzle-wise and like Metroidvania-wise is I want there to be some sequences where I actually need to think about like the order of operations that I'm going into, or going into a puzzle with. Like, okay, I got to turn into a ball, but then I got to switch to the cannon in between the ball phases, and then I got to get over there before the portal closes, but the only way I can do that is by doing this thing, and like that's the kind of stuff that I want to really rack my brain with, is like the actual figuring out of the puzzles. And of the things that I got to play, there wasn't really that much of that. And I'm going to say yet because I don't know all of the puzzles, and I'm hoping that there are more advanced puzzles in the higher world tiers, because there are 4 world tiers. Legendary campaign is a thing, by the way. You can just start on world tier legendary. That's the kind of stuff, to me, that might make the campaign experience a bit more enjoyable. Like, really difficult puzzle solving, which I understand is not for everybody. You know, I get it. And something that I was very interested in looking at was how more traditional media was going to be covering Destiny. Like PC Gamer, we read an interview and we looked at an article, and GameSpot. Yeah, okay, it was GameSpot. You know, I wanted to see a couple of their articles because the greater Destiny community, or the greater gaming community, is not really coming into the Destiny bubble to be like, what's going on with Edge of Fate? They're just going to be looking at a few articles on those bigger websites to be like, oh, is anything happening? And so I really want to see their feedback on a lot of the puzzle mechanics and the new abilities and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of mirrored my experience in that, like, I think the things are cool, and they're definitely going to change up how a typical Destiny campaign is played. Like, we're doing stuff that we definitely haven't done before, and it does change up the campaign a little bit in a way that I think makes it a little more enjoyable for sure. But I'm waiting to see if there's like some harder puzzles and some harder Metroidvania stuff in the campaign experience for me to really be like, oh yeah, this was a hit, even if I am still enjoying myself with some of the missions that were presented to us. Another thing was like destination size. I don't know if this is the biggest destination Bungie has ever made, but it feels like a pretty big destination, right? You're going to have your center hub. That's where you're going to go. And then it kind of splits out into like 4 segments, and each kind of has their own little story block kind of going on. I hate to keep bringing up WoW a lot of the time, but like, you know, you'll be leveling in like a zone, and then like you go to this area of the zone and they have their own little story going on. And then you have this area and they have their own story going on. But then it all like kind of comes together at the end for like some giga story. That's kind of what's going to be happening here, I'm pretty sure. But it is a proper destination. It's a pretty good size. So yeah, it is. I don't know. I'm not going to call it the biggest because I don't actually know. But it is a pretty sizable destination. This next question was a very quick one. Will dungeons and raids that are old drop tiered loot? I'm under the assumption of no. My assumption for any sort of tiered armor anything is that it will drop from new things going forward. I don't think you're going back to Vow the Disciple to get the Vow the Disciple 2-piece armor bonus, set bonus, anything like that. I didn't ask, but I'm guessing all the tier stuff, that's going to be Edge of Fate. That's going to be renegades. That's going to be whatever happens next. It's all going to be new stuff. As a result, I don't really know what's happening like raid-wise, dungeon-wise with some of those items. I'm guessing they're just kind of staying in the past. I don't know what's happening with the new raid at all in terms of like, are you going to choose your own difficulty for the raid? Like what's going on with that? I don't know what tier it's going to drop at. You know, my guess would be like maybe tier 3, tier 4 for the normal mode. And then whenever we get like the hard mode version of it, that might drop some tier 5 stuff. That would be my guess going into it, but they don't tell us anything about the raid. So don't ask me. Yeah, I'll cut that one short. Any thoughts on no new subclasses or supers or aspects or abilities or do? Obviously, a lot of that stuff is like, it's really sexy in that it's good for marketing, right? It's cool to see like, oh, they just made the new stasis supers for all the classes. These are sick. Or like new strand supers. These are cool. Or like new aspects. These are dope. Or even just like a new subclass entirely. And I'm guessing we didn't see a lot of that because Bungie is spending a lot of time laying a new foundation. This has been a topic of conversation in the community for like a really long time now about like, when is Bungie gonna do like the new player experience patch or the new player experience season where they're like, hey, look, we got to put a lot of this main stuff on the back burner for a little bit. And we got to like do some maintenance over here. Like we got to fix some potholes. This pipe's broken. It's just pissing water everywhere. Like that's the kind of stuff that I feel like is kind of happening in Edge of Fate. It's not really super sexy stuff. It's like me going to the gym, right? They're lifting some weights. You don't get muscular overnight. They're over here. They're just here, baby. They're just cranking out some of these, right? This is what they got to do. They got to do a few of these, and then they can put on the Speedo and show off all the new subclass this and the new super that and the whatever, looking all muscular and stuff, right? So this is something that needed, I think, to eventually happen. Some sort of, I don't want to say preventative maintenance because we've needed that for a little while now, but just like straight up maintenance on the game. They are building a new, hopefully stronger foundation to build upon, because if they can fix the foundation of the experience of the game, then that's when they can start adding more things on top. They can add the cool stuff. They can add this feature, that feature, this feature, that feature. But we've been in such like a, we got to fix stuff mode for like so long that it can be tough to try to get those things in. And I'm guessing they just like, there's only so many things they can do in a single drop or a single expansion drop that just like eventually some stuff's got to get shelved, right? You only have so much time and so much space to put into a thing before you're just like, we gotta move on. Like we can't keep scope creeping anymore. We got to focus on this and we're doing this. So my hope is that with this patch that we have needed for solo, or this update that we have kind of needed for a while, regardless of what you think of it, regardless of what you think of the portal or the new systems or this or that, this is some stuff that Bungie thinks will help guide players a little bit better and will make the game more enjoyable. And if they're right, and the game is more enjoyable and it's a little bit easier to comprehend and new people maybe want to join up or something like that, or the game just at least feels stable, then I think we start to see new subclass, new supers, more aspects, more this, more that, the more sexy stuff to get added to the game. That is my hope. Obviously, I'm disappointed. Yeah, like it would be cool to see a new subclass or a new stasis supers or strand supers, like whatever the hell else they're going to do, right? But I understand that like they're trying to lay a new foundation. They're trying to pour out some concrete, and then we'll put up the walls and the interior design and every other freaking analogy that I can think of that, like, you get it. Next up was just like thoughts on Lodi. Lodi is like, he's a guy. He's just straight up a guy. And he's just normal. He just feels like a normal guy. At the very least, like of the limited voice lines that I got to hear from him, I don't think he's cringe. I think he's cool. I think he's chill. I think he's normal. I think he's fine. I think people are gonna like him. That you might not be like, oh my god, this is the greatest character of all time, but you might be like, this guy's just like a breath of fresh air to just like have someone kind of normal in this game. Even though like we do have, you know, personalities in this game that maybe they're not considered normal, but like he's just like on another level of just like chill and normal. He's got a couple funny lines that I heard. He didn't say anything cringe. He's just a guy. I like him. I like him. Now, something that I do want to talk about is the fact that Ikora has a new temporary voice because of the still ongoing SAG-AFTRA strikes. The new voice, the new temporary voice, hopefully temporary, hopefully they get this freaking strike resolved because it kind of messed up a bunch of episode 3, is Deborah Wilson. Deborah Wilson is Savathun. So now we're going from Savathun, who we're used to like hearing her voice and being like, evil person. And now it's like transferred over to Ikora, who is very good. And I am interested to hear how people react to her voice. Some other creators I know have like posted the mission and her voice and I'll post like a clip here.
Guardian, welcome to Kepler, as the Vanguard Archive calls it. The gravimetric distortions we tracked from the EDZ are tangled in an excess of dark matter. In our records, this planetoid was confirmed to be unoccupied and inert.
I'm interested to hear how people react. Now, here's my feeling. Would I rather have Deborah Wilson voicing Ikora than Ikora having no voice at all and just being a bunch of subtitles? 100% yes, it's not even close. I would much rather have someone voicing the character than no one voicing Ikora at all. But she has a very different take on Ikora. Ikora I find usually to be like very confident, but still like soft spoken, but in like a strong way. And Deborah Wilson does not play along with that. She kind of puts her own more aggressive, kind of steadfast tone to Ikora, which I wasn't ready for. And I'm not used to, because I'm used to Ikora being this strong, soft spoken character. But either way, I appreciate that we're at least going to have some voices in this game, because I understand Bungie is probably in a really weird spot with the ongoing strikes and like, dude, we can't release a new expansion, launching a new story, and no one's saying anything, man. It can't just be subtitles on everybody's screen and then the drifter just pops in every once in a while. We can't do that. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for them. And I do appreciate that Deborah Wilson was able to come in and do what she was able to do on whatever, I don't know if it was like short notice or whatever. Regardless of whatever you think about the strikes, I've heard a lot of like pro-SAG, anti-SAG. I did not read up on it enough to be well informed, so I'm just going to stay out of it for now. But I do appreciate that she is at least here. Is it my preferred take on Ikora? Maybe not necessarily, but she wanted to try something, and I'm willing to hear it out. And if at the end of the day I don't like it, it's like, okay, I didn't like the spin on it, but it's not going to completely kill the experience for me. Next up is a lot of people freaking out about the weapons stat, because we have a weapons stat now being converted from mobility, I think is generally what is accepted as like, hey, any mobility armor is turning into like weapons-based armor. So everyone's like, oh my God, why would you ever run with anything other than weapons at 200 stats? Because weapons 200 is you're getting bonus damage on pretty much everything in the game. PvP, I think, is a 6% boost. PvP is 10 to 15% across certain weapons, something like that. And a lot of people have brought up like, you know, mass armor swapping throughout every single stage of every single encounter of every single thing of like, you know, oh, are we going to have situations where, oh, it's boss damage time, hot swap to your loadout that has 200 weapons, and then, oh, that phase is over, switch back to a different one, or like, oh, time to use our supers, let's switch over to our super armor. Do I think a lot of that's going to be happening? If left unrestricted, yeah. Is that going to piss me off? Yeah. I'm not really a big fan of that, but I don't think the entire game is just going to be like you roll around with weapons 200 to get a bunch of extra weapon damage and then you just call it a day. As I talked about in my stats video, stats kind of matter now. Like everything matters. We don't have this situation where you have 2 dump stats that are just like, who cares? And you have enough stats on all of your other armor pieces to get to like triple or quad 100s, so you never have to think about anything. Stats matter. If you are building weapons 200 and like 140, 150 of like whatever other stat weapons is usually paired with, all of your other stats are going to be bad. And it is noticeable when you don't have a lot of a stat. If you don't have a lot of grenade, dude, your grenade's going to be like a 1.5, 2-minute cooldown. And then even when you're getting grenade energy, you're not getting as much because grenade energy and like melee energy and class ability and all these things like scale now, right? So you can put more into a stat and get more out of like, demolitionist, let's call it. Kills would normally get you like 10% of your grenade or whatever they get you. Now it scales. Like if you have a lot of grenade, you might get more than that. But if you have very little grenade, you might get way less. So I don't think people should, just assume that one build will just be what you roll with for every single part of the game. I think that's gonna be the thing that makes build crafting a little more exciting. Is like people are gonna have their own twists on things instead of 100 resilience, 100 recovery, 90 strength. Someone might go like, oh, I'm going 200 melee because I find that I want my melee attacks to hit as hard as possible. And then someone else might be like, oh, I'm only doing 150 melee because I wanted some other stats over here so that I can do this. It allows you to have a little more creativity with your setup, but at the same time, there are sacrifices that you're going to have to make with your build. And I do think that is something that we really haven't had a whole hell of a lot of recently. And I think that's going to make the space a little more interesting. But am I concerned about like every single armor set actually, or every single like setup needs 4 or 5 different armor swaps in the middle of a dungeon or a raid encounter or something like that to fully optimize everything you're doing? Yeah, I'm concerned about it because I hate it. I hate doing swaps, but it's like we're already doing swaps. Like what's the difference between going from, an armor set that doesn't have surges on it to surges compared to weapons 100 to weapons 200? It's kind of along the same thing, right? You're swapping your surges in and out during damage phases. You're swapping your weapons stat armor in between damage phases. So I can understand people like, it's kind of like this. It's like very close. It's very similar. But I just hate, I hate playing the menu game a lot. So I am wondering if Bungie plans on doing a whole hell of a lot about that. Finally, a lot of people just straight up ask me like, is this good? Is this going to get asses in chairs? Are people like going to be excited to play this? Am I going to be excited to play this? Like, because I fell off because of this reason, that reason, whatever. And to use a phrase that we read in an article today, like, is this the shot of adrenaline that the game needs to like have a big blow up moment again, or get people really amped up and excited? And my answer is like, it doesn't feel like it, but I don't know if it was necessarily designed to be that. Because I feel like if you wanted to go with like a shot of adrenaline into you, you would be breaking out all like the sexy stuff, like the subclasses and the supers and the this and the that. But instead, they're going for like a slower ramp up. And I've had like a lot of people say like, why are they even bothering with this? Like, there's no new players joining the game. Why are they wasting their time with this stuff? And you got to kind of look at it from Bungie's point of view. Because like they have 2 options, it's no secret. We've been bleeding some players. So it's like, okay, well, you just stick on the status quo and like, just, don't try to address anything and keep trying to please the people who are active on the game and then slowly bleed out. Or do you at least try to do something to get some new faces, some new blood into the experience by being like, hey, it's a new story. Everyone's kind of starting at 0. It's kind of soft resetting. You can join up, like you'll be matched up with everybody else. We're not taking away all this content, so you'll be able to play all of it as much as you want. And going into the future, you'll be able to catch up and all this kind of stuff. They're going to do that. They're not just going to like sit and be like, well, we're giving up. Like they just can't do that, right? So I don't know if this was necessarily the thing that was supposed to, like hit us with the EKG machine and resurrect us, more so than it was supposed to be something to be like, okay, we got to make some big changes. We got to do some systemic changes. We got to do some big fundamental changes about how people experience the game. Let's get ourselves stable. Let's get us to a comfortable spot. Let's get people happy who are active on the game. And let's make it a better environment for people who want to join up or who want to rejoin up with the game. So that's kind of made it difficult for me to answer the, like, is it good? Like, is it going to bring me back to the game? Like, is it good? I do think it's good. Do I think it's like a fundamental reshaping of the experience as we know it? No, man. It's still going to be about shooting aliens in the face and using your abilities to get guns and armor and level up to take on the next difficulty, to get those guns to take on the next difficulty. It's still going to be that. But I'm still wondering how people will feel about like the campaign experience, because I do think there are some neat things being there, but or being done there. But like, if you're someone who's like looking for a reason to relapse, like, are they like, what crazy stuff are they doing? Like, is it going all out and this and that? I would say, like, maybe monitor how people are feeling about this big systems changes, how grinding is going to be changing up. How are people enjoying the campaign? Things like that. I don't know if this is like a big shock to the system, but I don't know. I don't think it was designed to be. I'm still enjoying what I'm playing. It's not that I'm not enjoying it. I don't think it's bad or anything, but for people who are like, what's like the next big thing? Like, what's like, they're not changing genres, y'all. It's still going to be a shooter. They're not really doing anything like that. But again, I think if they get stable and they find some systems where they don't have to change them every other year, and they just are stuck at the foundational level, if they can get something solid and start to build on top of it, that's when you're going to start to see maybe some more exciting things coming. And I got a lot of questions like, do you think, is there a future for the game? Is there hope for the future? Datto, please tell me there's hope for the future, and not by Paul McCartney. And the example I like to give is like either Final Fantasy XIV or No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky, if you were around back then, was coming out with so much hype, and that game fell flat on its face when it launched. Everyone hated that game. And what do? There wasn't a shock to the system. They're just lifting weights. They're lifting weight. Okay, we got to work on this. We got to improve this. And then like 3 years later, someone like checked them through the window and was like, bro, what happened, man? You look great. And then everyone flocked to it. I don't think that's out of the question for Destiny, although they certainly have a lot of negative press to work through. But it's always within the realm of possibility. It's always within the realm of possibility to me. So is this shot of adrenaline the game needs? I don't think this is, a shot of adrenaline or anything like that. I'm still enjoying it. And I do think there are some pretty novel things being done so far. But I personally wouldn't call it the shot of adrenaline that people are looking for, that shock factor, the super sexy content. They're just getting back to some fundamentals. They're making their foundation. I've been yapping for a while, but like you get it. Okay, I think those are all the big. I went way longer than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to have like quick 2-3 minute answers to these, but you guys know me. I'm very long winded sometimes when I don't have a script in front of me, and I just didn't have time to write like 30 minutes worth of conversation because I wanted to get something out quick. But hopefully this addressed like some more things from the Edge of Fate reveals, and if you guys got any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And I will try to answer them. We also got to do like a Let's Argue. I want to bring back another one of those. We'll maybe do it a little more Edge of Fate themed. So stay on the lookout for that. We're going to do another Let's Argue pretty soon about this. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for getting through all this. If you sat through all of this, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.